Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood our resident African expert, Dr. LMadu. And of course, Dr. LMadu needs no introduction to any of our audience because he's been with us on many, many occasions, and he's also with us at the beginning of this new season. And Dr. Madu, let me welcome you to the show this morning and to tell you how delighted we are to again have you with us to talk about one of the real issues in international politics today, and that is the situation in Egypt. And the topic I think we've selected is Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood. And so let's have you to start off that topic for us this morning.
Well, you know, the Muslim Brotherhood has been at the center of Egyptian politics for the past 80 years. You know, most people in the Arab world and the entire Middle East know about the Muslim Brotherhood. However, you know, with the ascension to power of Mohammed Morsi, who is a member of the Brotherhood, the organization has come, you know, into more scrutiny. People want to know who are they, what are they up to, where was it started, do they have branches in the United States or other parts of Europe, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But it's an organization that was founded in 1928 in the Egyptian city of Ismailia by a man, a Muslim cleric, an intellectual called Hassan el-Banna. You should know that in the 20s, the Arab world and the entire Middle East was going through a political and religious convulsion. By that I mean after the end of the First World War and the abolition of the Caliph in Turkey by Ataturk, the whole Islamic world was in disarray and trying to find its way. Egypt was no exception. After that war, there was a lot of economic and political changes that were needed. You know, secularization was coming in, westernization was coming in, modernization was coming in. Most of these things were anathema to the Muslims. And Hassan el-Banna and his followers saw it that way. They were opposed to a secular Egypt. They were opposed to a westernized Egypt. They were opposed to a modernized Egypt because they felt that the influx of Western influences would dislocate Egyptian society, not only economically, but also spiritually. So they started trying to find solutions to some of these problems. Egypt at that time was under the leadership of King Farouk, and Farouk's court was known to be very corrupt. So el-Banna was railing against corruption in Farouk's court, while he was railing against secularization and westernization, because he felt that westernization and secularization and modernization of Egyptian society will bring in what they call the twin evils of industrialization and capitalism, which he felt Egyptians did not need. So el-Banna articulated a set of guidelines of what he believes his organization would do. He wants a return of the Caliph, the institution of a theocratic one-party state in Egypt, you know, and also the Egypt should be ruled according to laws of the Quran. To execute some of these ideas, he started, you know, building a mass organization, you know, through building healthcare centers, schools, feeding the poor, YMCAs. His own was called Young Men's Muslim Association, YMMA. That's correct. He formed all those things in order to get into the grassroots of the whole country. So by the time you know it, the whole of Egypt had cells of Muslim brotherhoods. And the more he built schools and hospitals and centers, the more people flocked to him, the poor people and all this, you know. So his organization was growing so fast that by the 1930s, early middle 1930s, had about 500,000 followers, which was very outstanding in Egypt at that time. So he started transforming his organization from a religious organization to a political organization. The Muslim Brotherhood was formed as a religious organization, you know, anti-Western organization, you know. So in the early 1930s, he started getting into the political arena, started opposing the French and the British influence in the Middle East. Once the return of the Suez Canal, started opposing the king and criticizing the king, So there inevitably had to be a coalition.
Okay, Dr. LMadu, let's have this first commercial break, and then I think we'll get back into the same area that we're in now. And let us stop for this commercial break, and we'll be back with you following this very, very short commercial break.
At 12, I smoked my first cigarette.
At 15, I was addicted.
By 14,
Welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. LMadu, and he's given us some information in reference to the organization of the Muslim Brotherhood, as well as additional information dealing with this spiritual political organization, Dr. LMadu, I think we might say. Why don't you go on and pick up at that point, Dr. LMadu?
Like I said, in the mid-1930s to late 1930s, his organization that was originally founded, as a religious organization to oppose, Western influence in the Middle East, gradually started taking a political face. He started opposing French and British colonial rule in the Middle East. Once he returned to the Suez Canal, to Egypt, and also started criticizing and opposing King Farouk and his court, which he believed was corrupt. Inevitably, there has to be a conflict with the authorities. The authorities were getting scared and frightened about Banner's growing power with the masses, because everything he was saying was what the majority of Egyptians wanted, for themselves. So that was threatened to the court. So in 1948, the organization was banned, by the government of Egypt. Its assets impounded, and a lot of its, members arrested. However, that same year, a Muslim Brotherhood member assassinated the Prime Minister, Mamdouh Pasha, in 1948. Well, in 49, most people regard it as a retaliation. Banner himself was assassinated in February, 1949. After he was assassinated, his second in command, so-called, a man called Sayyid Qutb, took over. When Qutb took over, the organization became more radical. Qutb was also an Islamic scholar and intellectual. In fact, he was the godfather of Osama bin Laden and his current, Ayman al-Zawahiri. All of them grew under his tutelage. So he became the spiritual guide of the Brotherhood. So it didn't take time for 1952 to come around. The Egyptian free officers overthrew King Farouk, and Abdul Nasser came to power. When Nasser came to power, the Brotherhood, they wanted to come out and say, hey, Nasser, we support you, you and the officers. So Nasser welcomed them back. Remember, they were banned in 48. So Nasser welcomed them back, and Nasser was talking with Qutb all the time, seeking his advice. But in 1954, a Brotherhood member wanted to assassinate Nasser. But they fired some shots at him at a meeting. So Nasser got mad, banned the organization, arrested all its members. In 1966, Qutb was executed, after he was tried and accused of attempting to assassinate Abdul Nasser. That was in 66. So he stayed banned until Anwar Sadat came to power in 1971. When Sadat came to power in 71, he started releasing people, from jail and cracked down on a lot of the activities of Egyptian secret police. So he unbanned the Brotherhood in a way and brought them back into spheres of political life halfway. However, in 1981, Sadat was assassinated by members of the Muslim Brotherhood, even though they went by the name of Islamic Jihad. But the guy who fired the shot that killed Sadat, Lieutenant Ahmed Islambuli, is a member of the Egyptian army, but he was a secret member of the Brotherhood. Mohammed Zumor, who was the brainchild of the plan to kill Sadat, was also a member, secret member of the Brotherhood Egyptian army. Zawahiri, who is now head of the Al-Qaeda, was a member of that group too, Islamic Jihad. So after Sadat's assassination, Mubarak took over. And Mubarak cracked down on them, executed those that needed to be executed, 3 others in jail, including Zawahiri, the current head of Al-Qaeda. So they stayed, you know, they went underground as usual when Mubarak cracked down. So in 82, the big rebellion in Hama, Syria happened. A branch of the Muslim Brotherhood in Hama rebelled against President Assad of Syria. You know, Assad sent his brother, Rifat al-Assad, who was the commander of the elite unit, to go down to Hama and put the rebellion down. In a matter of weeks, 10,000 people were slaughtered you know, by the Syrian army, and the rebellion was put down. So, since then, the Brotherhood has been quiet. Then after the overthrow of Mubarak, you know, they brought their head up again as the Egyptian Freedom and Justice Party. That was under the umbrella which Morsi ran for election. So Morsi ran for election last year and won as a member of the Brotherhood. Now the problem is, how is Morsi going to govern? You know, since he came to power, he has been issuing some decrees and trying to accumulate powers himself, trying to circumvent the justice system and all that. So people are getting very, you know, very angry in Egypt. A lot of the Christians are running away now, immigrating to the United States and to Europe. Women are scared, you know, they might have to become second class again after years of, you know, being
liberation.
Exactly. So all those things are getting people mad. Now, the United States itself has a off-hands approach. In fact, last year President Obama said, look, Egypt is not our friend, they're not our enemy. Even though they receive about $3 billion from us every year. Yeah, because he's not sure which way the wind is going to blow with Mohamed Morsi. Now, one of the key tenets of Hassan al-Banna's, you know, this thing was the installation of a one-party theocratic state in Egypt, you know, governed by the laws of the Quran. Morsi is a strong supporter and believer of Hassan al-Banna. So people are beginning to say, well, Morsi might eventually, you know, gradually bring in a theocratic state into Egypt.
Is that the center of most of his opposition in Egypt? Many people oppose him, and that's why they oppose the Egyptian Brotherhood in a real sense?
Absolutely, because they are scared they are going to introduce a theocratic state, and that would be the end of free and fair elections. You know, in Iran since '79, if you don't belong to the party of the mullahs, you are frozen. So they feel that is going to happen in Egypt, that Morsi is going to eventually introduce a theocratic state in Egypt. So that's creating a whole lot of problems. And that's the crux of the whole Muslim Brotherhood philosophy. It's a rule by the Quran and by God. And most Egyptians, at least half Egyptians, are opposed to that kind of government. That's the importance of the Brotherhood today in the politics of the Middle East.
Very good. And of course, let us take this final commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.